Good day, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me on this webinar. My name is Maurice Mulalic, and I am a technology consultant. I've been in the website technology and the mobile apps technology industry for quite some time. I've gotten a lot of inquiries in regards to the modern day consumer and how to better tap into the modern day consumer through technological outlets. So I figured, you know what, I'll put on this webinar and I hope to answer quite a bit of questions that you may have. For the agenda for today, I want to take a look at the psychological perspective, the brain, a concept called emotional intelligence, and the consumer evolution process. I also want to bring in the business perspective, which is learning from the success of other businesses and the modern day consumer. And finally, I want to bring in the technological perspective, which is a better understanding of internet users, the two different types of internet users, user interface, as well as user design. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into the very first segment, which is our brain. If you want to follow along through kinesthetic modeling, what you can do is you can actually take your hand and form it into a fist, and that'll replicate the brain. The very first thing that I want to discuss are the lobes of the brain and their functions. First, I'm going to start off with the frontal lobe. Your frontal lobe is meant for higher level logical processing. Next is your parietal lobe. This has to deal with sensory information such as touch. Following that is your temporal lobe, and this has to deal with audio reception. Lastly, we have the occipital lobe, which has to deal with visual processing. These four lobes form our neonatal cortex and our mammalian brain, which allows us to have a higher level of thinking. The next system I want to discuss is the limbic system. This has everything to do with our emotional drivers, our gut, our intuition, that inexplicable feeling when you feel that something is wrong. What's important about this system is that it's actually a gatekeeper to our higher level processing. So if it doesn't pass our feelings, or if we don't feel good about something, we're not going to invest any positive thoughts into it. And what I mean by that is you can run across a product or a service that you'll know all the facts about, all the information about, but something in your gut is just telling you, stay away from it. Then you're going to find that the next 30 seconds are spent biasly confirming that decision that was made by your limbic system. So you might be thinking, what's the significance in all this? Well, there's a concept that comes into play, and it's called emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is basically understanding the decision-making process. Our emotions and our intuition is essentially hard-coded and unchangeable. It's sort of like controlling a horse. You can't necessarily control the horse per se, but what you can do is you can influence it by pulling on the reins in one way or another. It's trickable, it's guidable, and companies do this through the form of perception, understanding, management, and reasoning. When I discuss the perception and understanding of emotions, I want you all to think of the inverse from typical standards. For example, it's not necessarily your job to determine your customer's emotional tone, whether or not they're having a good or bad day, but the inverse of it would be, what kind of emotional tone does my website give off? What kind of a corporate culture am I displaying through my design? With that being said, what I want to do next is further delve into these four topics, beginning with perception, of course, and I'm going to work my way all the way down to management. Now, there's going to be a physiological component as well as a psychological component to each of these. Perception, of course, is rather obvious. It begins with the user experience, whether that be interaction, seeing something, hearing something, smelling something. It's going to generate some type of an emotional feeling. The reasoning is not going to come into play until we get past that limbic system, which is that gatekeeper. And believe it or not, it takes about 2 seconds to figure out whether or not we are satisfied or dissatisfied with something. The next 28 seconds are spent biasly confirming our decision. We're going to try to find faults in absolutely anything that we can in order to reassure that our decision was correct. Now, draw a line right here and just stop for a second. The understanding portion comes in from the business and company side. Good companies know that there is a risk assessment going on right here. Their consumer has landed on a technology, whether that be a website, a mobile app, social media, or anything to that extent, and the consumer is now assessing the risk. Do I trust this company with my money? Do I trust that they're going to provide a very good user experience or the best user experience that I could possibly have? Good companies know how to manage their technologies in order to address this risk and properly create a relationship through the channel that's available. These relationships can be very basic personal interactions all the way to website technologies making the sale for you. Let's take a look at Coca-Cola, for example, and that nostalgic Coca-Cola bottle. Day-to-day marketing strategies influence experiences and target emotions, and Coca-Cola is a fantastic example of this. Our brains have actually grown accustomed to this influence and now seek it through new experiences. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look at this picture of this Coca-Cola bottle.
Let's just sit here, analyze it for just a little bit, and let's take a look at this one. It kind of looks like the exact same picture, but the emotion that each picture conveys is completely different. For example, the picture on the left is taken in a dark light setting, the bottle is only half full, and it's not capped, meaning that I'm not necessarily going to have the best experience if somebody were to pass me that half full drink. Where if I saw a Coca-Cola bottle that was full, capped, and somebody handed that to me, I would make that experience my own. I didn't have to share it with anybody. Not to mention, let's take a look at the design of the actual bottle. Did you notice that it was the classical glass bottle? It's completely different than receiving a can, isn't it now? So how could we learn from another technology company from success? Well, how much market share do you really think Apple has? It's only 14%. Could you believe that? Most people believe that Apple is this giant company. Remember that iPod commercial with the dancing silhouettes? This is a prime example on the touch point of emotional intelligence. Why did they utilize silhouettes? Well, because you were the silhouette. The person that was inside that photograph dancing or inside that commercial dancing, they're no different from you. And you can have the same enjoyment that they are having, the same positive user experience. So how does technology relate to all of this? That's a very good question. It has to deal with company positioning and appearance. One of the most important things that you can give off is a first impression. And knowing your market thoroughly, well, you're going to know that they're going to hit your website way before they're going to walk through your company doorstep. Enter the modern day consumer or consumer evolution. Back in the day, it was extremely difficult to get information. The only way that we could do it is through simple pamphlets or word of mouth. Technology has advanced so far that the power to control everything is literally in the palm of our hands. Even our television remotes are disappearing because there's an app for that. Did you know that the feeling of safety is associated with your hands? They're our primary form of defense. One item that has caught my attention that our hands grab a lot is our cell phone. I mean, research has shown that people literally feel naked without their phone. And not to mention, we always keep it within proximity of at least 2 feet from us, even though we don't want to be bothered. So, image and appearance, especially in the digital world, is incredibly important. Accessibility and risk assessment both come into play. If you're not accessible, there's no way to engage in the relationship building process of risk assessment. Think about it for just a second. If you had a question right now that no one else could answer in the room, the very first place that you'd be reaching for is ding ding ding, cell phone. When you take your cell phone out, you're going to go to Google or Bing or any search engine and you're going to type in whatever your question is. Once the search engine gets populated, you're going to click on the first couple of websites and the very first thing you're going to be doing is perceiving the risk. Which brings us back to the limbic system. Hey, is this website telling me the truth? How do I feel about this website? How do I feel about this answer? I'm not too satisfied with it. Let's go ahead and try the next one. This happens every single second of the day. Now let's take a look at the internet. There are two types of internet people. The first that you need to be aware of are internet users. These are non-shoppers who are experience-motivated individuals. They're typically seeking entertainment and web interactivity. So if you can imagine your Facebook goers, your YouTube goers, and so on. The next are internet shoppers. These people are task-oriented, product or service-motivated individuals seeking the fulfillment of specific product or service needs. So if you can consider someone that's in need of a doctor, or someone that's in need of a place to eat, or someone that's in need of a solution to whatever their problem is. Experience-oriented users generally have lower perceived risks. Therefore, they are less likely to complain about their experience directly. However, they will still terminate the relationship if they are dissatisfied. This is interesting because even though they may not complain directly, they will indirectly by talking to a friend, posting on a social network, or texting someone right away. Internet shoppers, on the other hand, which remember is the internet shopper seeking a solution, values time as a huge priority. I mean, think about it. It can be an emergency. And when we want an answer, we don't really want to wait for it. We want the answer here and we want the answer now. But they have a higher perceived risk. This is interesting because their expectations of an ideal user experience does not end at simply purchasing the product or service. And what I mean by that is the cycle isn't complete until they've actually received the product or service. So imagine yourself shopping from Amazon. You're very happy that your purchase is coming in, but then the box shows up and the product itself is broken. Your entire experience is then tarnished, and you're going to blame the whole transaction. You're not just going to say, oh, well, the website experience was good. No, you're going to say this entire experience is crap. I've been waiting forever for this product, and you're going to find any possible way to complain, directly and indirectly. You will also then terminate the relationship, or you'll be hesitant to shop from the particular person again. So what does all this mean? Well, it means that it's in your best interest to address the psychological expectations of both of these internet people by giving them the best user experience possible even though only one of them is going to shop from you. You never know when someone's going to be an influencer to someone else's decision. It happens all the time, particularly when they visit Yelp. To take the subject one step further, dissatisfaction is an emotional feeling, not a logical process. And dissatisfaction will signify one of two responses. Either your consumer is going to terminate the business relationship without complaint, or they're going to terminate the business relationship with complaint. Now, the risk of dissatisfaction is a rather interesting thing. So with the modern day consumer in mind, where does the risk evaluation process begin? And the answer is in the digital user experience. 91% of company websites are researched by consumers according to the National Small Business Association. Social media has social credibility. Places like Facebook, Yelp, Google+, Urban Spoon, all these are documented personal experiences, and people love stories, especially bad ones. Let's take a look at the modern consumer risk research cycle. First, we have Google, then we have company websites, then we have social media, and phone calls. Initially, when a modern consumer is interested in learning about a product or service, or finding out about a piece of information, they're going to go to Google. If you don't show up on Google, your competitor will, and the user cannot experience anything from you. Thus, there's a termination of relationship. 82% of websites do not load properly on mobile devices, which is a high risk for termination of the user experience, simply because they can't read your text, they're in their car, or some division of your website is inaccessible to them in which they really need to access. Next is social media. When there's no or weak social media presence, this all hinders credibility and the user experience is negatively influenced and or terminated. Finally, you have the phone call. A poor digital qualification process results to useless phone calls and a waste of resources. Modern consumers tend to utilize phone calls as a last resort. Each of these points represents a critical phase in the risk research cycle. And remember, it's an emotional process. If they are frustrated in any way, shape, or form, or if they don't get to where they want to get to within a relatively short amount of time, they're going to move on, and your competitor is essentially going to get the business. With that in mind, take a look at website engineering and architecture. Websites are digital real estate. Just like a house, they make a first impression. It's very modular. Like a component of a business, it's not supposed to be the entire business itself, albeit it's a critical component for modern consumers. Stuff like flyers, commercials, and in-person relationships, all of these things that you hand out, including your business card, navigate the consumer to some form of a website. And thus begins the user experience. After the website, I'm going to go check out the social media channel. If the social media channel is up, bright, vibrant, lively, and so on, then I might engage even further with the company. Now notice that the mobile experience is completely different, and this is something that companies need to really pay attention to. The first thing that you can pay attention to is finding out if your company's website is mobile friendly or mobile responsive. Quick and simple way, pull out your cell phone, punch in your company's website or your business website, and see if it comes up on your phone. If you have to scroll up and down or the screen size doesn't adjust properly, you fall into the 98% of websites that are not mobile responsive. It's okay, there's always room for adjustments, but this is all going to impact the emotional decision and the risk assessment that a user has. Remember, it's very important to win over the trust of the digital consumer, and what better way to do it through the thing that they consider the most safe, which is their cell phone. So what's the final destination? Well, all of your marketing efforts and material lead somewhere, but your modern day consumer will choose technology. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of experience will your company's online outlets provide? Are they easy to use? Are they visible? Is the design pretty good? Does the functionality do what it's supposed to do? Does it make me look credible? Is it completely interactive? Think about it for just a second. In conclusion, decision making is more emotional than logical. Remember the limbic system. It definitely plays a role in the digital world. Modern consumers will base the expectations on current technology trends. Modern consumers are used to utilizing stuff like Facebook, Twitter, and other social media outlets. A really good thing to do would be to go on a website such as Amazon with your phone and see how the fluidity is. They utilize what's called a frictionless design. There's a psychology behind every single click that takes place while on a website. Excellent architecture and engineering of online brand as a modular component to business strategy is critical in building trust. Remember, 91% of all websites are researched by consumers, and the trust starts there. Websites and social media are both risk evaluating tools for consumers. If you want to build good trust with the modern day consumer, then have an adequately built website. And don't forget, respect the entirety of the user experience cycle, because even though the digital experience may be good, if you don't deliver on the good product or service that you promised, then the digital experience is going to be tarnished. Thank you so much for your time and listening to me. I really appreciate it. I hope that I was able to answer a lot of questions. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn, and I look forward to hearing from you.